Welcome everyone. Fostering creativity in team members is what we will be discussing in today's presentation. Remember how to have inculcate the habits of innovations and what are the essential requirement to create such an environment is what we will be talking today. So let us proceed with the agenda. Creativity and innovations is what we will be talking about it. What are the different methods in creativity? How do we foster it? How do we build it as a habit? The thinking barriers. We'll talk about brainstorming and other creative meetings as the possible options are all about it. Creativity option generations as the case is all about it. And then we will be talking about the information sources for creativity, evaluation of options, and implementation of the options thereby. This is what we will be talking in today's presentation. Creativity. Let us understand what is creativity. Remember, creativity is an ability to bring something new in the context, what has not been practiced, professed elsewhere or beforehand, something that did not exist before, and that is what creativity is all about it. Creativity comprises the development of entirely new system, the combinations of already known information, as well as the transfer of the known relations to the completely new situation, as the case might be. This is what is creativity. And I have depicted a glowing bulb as an idea generation process of creative property. So a creative actions has to be intentional and must have some sense of directions and purpose thereby. This is what creative all is all about it. What are the sense of direction or the purpose, if I may clearly been asked to define as in which has an economic value, as in which improves the standards of living, as it which improves the ease of operation is what creativity is all about it. Now let us understand the thought process and the creative property thereby. Convergent thinking is fixed, structural, and logical way of thinking. When we divide it into a systematic step, and that is what comes around it, and if we can maneuver those process, those steps, that is creativity, the thought process thereby. Always remember that divergent thinking is always free. It is disorders. It is imaginative. It does not follow any sense or logic, by the way. But at the end of the day, if you can reach to your goals and objective, nothing like it. Productive creativity is the controlled divergence, and this is what we all aspire to move forward to. Creative thinking is a type of divergent thinking which is adapted to the reality as the case might be. We will look into the factored in as on when on the process that is being done. So, allow me to give you the steps of creativity. First and foremost thing is your identification of problem. Identifying as an obstacle what is taking more of our resources, what is taking more of our time, what is taking more of our manpower. Can we eliminate? Can we reduce? Can we reuse, recycle? Now, this is what problem identification is all about. It. You need to analyze the problem as per the identification as to what can you do. You reuse it, recycle it, reduce the steps, and this analysis will lead to a lot of viable option, and that is what I call idea generation. Remember, there would be a number of ideas which would be generated, of which some would be feasible, some would not be manageable, some would be only in platonic stage altogether. So you need to evaluate those ideas before executing it and making it a reality. So the steps are problem identification, problem analysis, idea generations, evaluation, and realization as the case might be. Factors of creative efficiency is personality, age, qualification, intelligence, motivation, stress, willingness to take. Now, these are the requirements of an individual. It is usually said that younger the gender person is probably more creative he or she would be. Why? Because the risk taking capacity is much more. On the other hand, there would be other people who would profess as you age, as you gain experience, you will have a better understanding of the problem and thereby come with a viable solution. So it is a concept that is always contested upon in terms of personality, age, qualification, intelligence, motivation, stress, and willingness to take risks. So is hierarchy, autonomy, management style, information, communication, work environment, and uniformity of procedure. This is what has been done with an office environment, what the organization actually manifests. Do they motivate employees to be creative? Do they ask them to think out of box? Do they look for conformity as far as the processes is concerned? Now, these will be the factors which will be either person centric or the company centric, which will lead to a creative ambience altogether. Let me give you two innovation products. Remember, the first one is only an economic implementation of an idea called innovation. The innovation comprises, the process comprises of the generation of an idea, its acceptance, decision, and realization. Implementation, creative thinking is required, particularly during the first stage of this process, as the case might be. Creative thinking is a must. A new idea is inevitably the result of creative thinking, but can be based on modification of imitation. What is more, not every creative process is followed by the implementation of an idea, as the case might be. Might be this is what we are looking forward to. So, innovations includes any type of changes performed on a process. At the beginning, it is irrelevant whether this change is new per se or if it is introduced in a particular company for the first time. So innovations, remember, this is what we are looking as far as the changes in the processes, changes in the performance. Is it at the beginning? Is it at the during the process or the late at the fag end of the process altogether? Consequently, the successful transfer of the previous known solutions to the new application has to be considered as an innovation. Remember, that is what we are looking forward to as far as innovations are concerned. So basic schemes of innovations, let me tell you to you what are the basic innovation process and how do we go around it. It starts right at the top, at the stimulus, at the point where you identify an issue. When I say issue, it's a problem that you have identified. And then probably how do you mitigate that problem or circumvent that problem, come to a solution wherein there is an n number of ideas that has been generated or collected. This ideas, whether collected or generated, has to be recorded, has to be processed in a systematic fashion of screening, evaluating it, deciding upon the few one which has been shortlisted, and test piloting it all together before implementing it in the market. And that is the basic scheme of innovation process. Thereby, this is how we actually achieve economies of scales and probably get along with a lot of effort that is there. Methods of idea generation. Basically, what are the ideas that we generate and how do we go around it? The first thing and the foremost thing is splitting it up, as the case might be. You have a problem, can we split it up in the teams? One, can we split up the problems into fragments, into minor problems, basic problems, as the case might be, and then try to solve them either on the team-wise basis or on the fragmented questions or the problem that's been going around it. And probably once you have done it, can we amalgamate it in terms of the problems, in terms of the team, come up with a viable solution as in linking and thereby putting an analogy so that we achieve a new paradigm altogether. Thinking barriers, let us understand what are the thinking barriers that comes into play every now and then. It is what you call the routine and habit, the wrong categories of premature evaluation. So routine and habit, if people are getting accustomed to certain routine, or probably if I say I'm getting into comfort zone altogether, how do you remove them or how do you come out of the situation? The wrong categories automatically will predict that things are not in the right frame of mind. Evaluation wise, premature, if it is emotionally insecure, pressures of conformity, cultural barriers, working environment, and intellectual barriers by per se, as the case might be. So brainstorming, four principles, any kind of criticism is strictly forbidden. There are absolutely no limits to the criticism part. Quantity comes before quality. Take up the ideas of others and develop them as on when on basis. Now, what are we looking out here? What exactly is we taking out? See, it is the case of brainstorming, probably figuring out a viable number of options which might not be unrealistic, which might not be practical, which might be forbidden, as the case may. Remember, generation of ideas and generation of the options, the numbers is more important. Remember, we first have to have a number of options available to made available to us before we screen it and prune it down on the basis of quality. So take up those ideas and develop them all together. This is what we are looking forward to. So form a group of 3 or 5 person. Did I say about breaking up your group on a team basis or describing your problem? Use the what question, when question, where question. Use the W question goes around it. Use brainstorming techniques to consider tips and evaluate the ideas. This is what is most important as far as the evaluation goes around it. So possible task. What happens? I will give you certain just a glimpse of the possibilities that can be worked upon or thought upon. Number one is a lighting manufacturer wants to develop a new work light, especially in a view of a new target of an environmentally conscious customer. So what are we talking about in terms of material, illumination sources, the light sources, and which has to be economically very conducive and environmentally very friendly. Next question is, a car repair shop wants to expand its service and is looking for new opportunities in the field of mobility. And how do you go across it? Access your company or your customers on a mobility platform. Now we are talking of mobility not only in access of communication or transportation, but also in access of the customers, as the case might be. A big shopping center, let the third possible task comes around it, has a problem with traffic congestions, especially in the weekends. Weekend it is mind-blowing blocking traffic that comes around, and it puts everything at a chock-a-block phase. Parking spaces are absolutely rare, costs are too high. The company looks for a solution which is not too expensive. How do we disengage those days with the customer? How do we encourage customers to follow other days, as the case might be? And this is the possible task of thinking out of box. Let us continue with it. I will give you another two examples. An group would like to introduce an environmental model administration. How do we come across this? A company responsible for waste disposal at an airport would like to discuss with the airlines how to separate waste in the aircraft. Which possibilities can you think of and how do you go about it? This is what we are looking forward to. Which possibilities can you think of it, as the case might be? Please remember it before we come across. So successful idea generations usually would have in a group of not more than 8 members, but in excess of 3 members. You cannot have 2 members in a group wherein person A would say yes and person B would say no, and it will lead to stagnation, right? So they will never come to arrive to an answer. So we will have to have an odd number of groups, preferably not more than 8 as such. Social homogeneity of the group needs to be maintained altogether. Coordinations or coordinator, not necessarily the managers. Probably you should be a part of the group and not have a different echelons or hierarchies as such. Informal and pleasant atmosphere is what we are looking into it. Mixed group, men and women. Meeting should not be too long or too frequent. It should not be too short also. It should be appropriate and relevantly paced and spaced around. Both the speed and the durations, in between durations, should be even. Clear tasks with clear definition of the roles is what we aspire for. Now remember, in a successful idea generation, it is mostly all of discussion, and it should be subjective, and people should be receptive to the criticism. They should be open-minded. Absolute criticism needs to be understood, because this only will let them understand the different windows of opportunity that might be lurking in around. Think it out, try it out, enjoy the pace as which the meeting goes around it. Remember, the outcome is all about the ideas and possibilities. It is never the clashes of ego as a person espousing upon or proposing an idea as well. So we can have a creative meeting where there is a rules of moderation in which everybody should be able to speak, able to express, and able to convince the other person. Given an ample opportunity of time, nobody should be dominating enough. So rules for discussion should be in place and techniques of visualization. If we can have a prototype, if we can have some kind of simulation, nothing like it makes the creative meeting much more productive, much more realistic, and it becomes very easy for the group to understand how the problems will be mitigated. So let us understand the planning procedures altogether. First and foremost thing is the preparations. Now, what do you plan for the meeting? As in, what are the agendas? In fact, if you remember in my presentation, almost every time, identically, almost every time, I would love to discuss about the agenda at the very beginning as what needs to be covered and what can be expected from a particular presentation. It should be within the first 1 or 2 minutes that comes around it. My presentation might be 20 minutes long, 30 minutes long, or even longer, but at the very beginning of the 2 minutes, first 120 seconds, and then you are very clear what to expect and what can be found at the end of the presentation. So we talk about preparation, participations or participant infrastructure, definitions of the roles, and the time frame that is being incorporated. That is what we are looking forward to. Yes, and this is how a creative meeting should proceed altogether. Now, next is all about your problem. So this was all about the participants and the infrastructure and the environment. Now we'll talk about the problems. What are the issues that needs to be dissected? Introduction wise, we need to define the problem or the objective, selection of the working method, joint development of solution as the case might be, as what we are looking forward to in cases if it is going to hamper. That is what the joint development is supposed to be said. Creative meeting is evaluation and continuation, discussion of the result, what are we looking into it in the form of evaluation, definition of the remaining aspect, discussion of the possible new approaches as the case might be. How do you go about the definition of the next meeting that comes around every now and then? You name it and we have it as the case might be. Some of all possible solution. Why? Everybody is coming to the meeting. Everybody has certain things that needs to be brought up onto the table. They have thought out of certain possible outcomes altogether. Why don't we at least consider or possibly discuss all the viable outcomes, the possible solution. Take note of everything. Nothing is going to go wrong if you take a note of everything. It is only going to be a fodder for a next idea generation skills as the process is all about it. Point out the most interesting possible solution that comes around. This is what is very important, as is creative meeting and evaluation and continuation is to be considered every now and then. So let us understand the creative property. CP, remember CP stands for creative property. Now new creative options, the property options that we goes out about it. Creative property is your idea generations, your particular idea, which is a novel one, new one. Apply creative property methodology consistently as how new it is, how relevant it is, how pocket friendly it is, how environmental conscious it is, and that is the question that you keep on asking. Brainstorm with the staff and the team, adapt creative property options from other sectors, that is, let's say cooling, compressed air, motivations on the employees, and so on and so forth. And I'm giving you why this dotted lines. This means that there are n numbers of parameters that needs to be followed, and this is not the comprehensive list. You can add on to the list, you can prune down the list, you can adapt the list as per the requirement of the company, as the case is all about it. Creative property option generations, how do you go about it? The standard operation generations are absolutely yes, as in we want to lower the cost, one of the most thing, or we want to hasten the delivery or increase the efficiency part. These are the standard options. Now new and creative options, we are going to change a new, completely deliver a new product to the end customer. That's a new generations. At the same time, we are going to make it friendlier to the customers as far as operation and handlings are concerned. This is creative property option generation. Now, how do we evaluate those CP options, both in terms of technical, environmental, and economical? Look, when mobile was launched, it was with key buttons, the analog mobile, and now we have a smart mobile without a key buttons, and a host of features that has come around it. The first mobile was with radio features as an added thing. Before that, it was an SMS feature that was added upon it. But now in the smart mobile, you can access the internet, you can browse the internet, you can play the radio, you can visualize or probably click a photographs. Forget photographs, you can keep a videos, record a video format altogether. You can generate n numbers of options, right from receiving money to transferring money, and do all your banking operation from your mobile. And I am only giving a gist of abilities that the mobile can actually help you achieve, and that is what evaluation of CP options, the creative property options, is all about. It This is what the new creative options will be taking around. Remember, evaluations of technical, environmental, and economic factors has to be done on a regular basis. The standard creative property options and the information sources are the general checklist from manuals, sector-specific manuals and studies, other information sources, information from suppliers, as the case might be. This is what we are looking forward to it again and again. So creative property information source, manuals, sectoral informations. Why do we go around it? And I am just giving you an international bodies to name it. I am sure within your countries you will have other sources. Remember, you can type it IPR, intellectual property rights, and it will tell you a lot about it within your governmental framework as to what creative informations can be required and how do you apply for it. So we have UNIDO or UNEP, the various suppliers, the internet homepages, university research centers, databases. We have so many of them. Apart from it, we can always go into the seminars, conference, conclaves, roundtable congresses. You have your own experiences, your counterpart, your friends, your colleagues, your co-workers, your superiors, your competitors, everyone will be providing you a bountiful of information sources. As far as your creative property is concerned, the chambers of industry, and commerce, the government, the ministry, other companies, and company staff in general is what we are looking around it. Let us understand the option generations waves, at least 10 of them. Number one is the waste box. Can you look at your waste box and generate some utility? So if you can make something best out of waste, is how you want to go around it. How can you recycle your waste products, the waste box concept? Then let's say close the shop. Another, within a fragmented equipments, materials, and things like that. If you can, probably if you can, with the discarded things, discarded equipment, discarded furnitures, discarded technical things, if you can come up with a some sort of viabilities of any product that comes around it. The question generation option is all about asking question why and nothing else. Not when, not how, now, not what. Just ask question why, and why. So learn from contradictions. Always have this contradictory options to go about it. The radical approach is what has been done or achieved by a contradiction. Indicators and benchmarking is another thing. Super ideal. Something which we are always like godlike thing. Something which there are no flaws at all. A situation which is almost textbook. Now, can we recreate those things? And that is what will give you other idea generation option. Methods would be 10%, leave it out, or probably test it out, try it out in the market, keep it separate or in silos as the case might be, reuse it as on when on everywhere that we comes around. So when to carry out a creative property option generation and how do you go about it? First and foremost thing, the creative property assessment report, please write it down in detail. First company, convince the company to participate in the project with NCPC as the case might be, EMS initial review as the case around it. We need to go about as on when on basis. Inquiries to the NCPC from other companies or consultants. These are your fixed properties or fixed bodies in the organizational bodies or governmental bodies, which will let you know how to go away, how to proceed in case you are finding or have reached into a bottleneck. within a cost reduction scales of auditing, within continuous improvement as the case might be. So influence on product quality, influence on productivity, material consumption, energy consumption, influence on maintenance, safety and flexibility. This is what is we are looking at it every now and then. So you need to work upon your product quality, you need to work upon your productivity, the material consumption, the energy consumption. Now how do you go about it? How do you reduce your energy consumption? How do make a much more optimum utilization of material consumption? What about zero maintenance product, as the case might be? Is it all around safe? Is it all around customization and flexibility? Now talking about environmental evaluation is material consumption, which we have already said it to you. The energy consumption, as in which is the renewable sources of energy, is it non-renewable sources of energy? Emission, as in what are the pollution that has been cleared for? Is it about the water, here, soil which has been polluted? Shift of the environmental problems to other media, and this is which is very relevant. Replacement of these substances, be it of health and safety that we talk about it, and how do we go around with it? So economic evaluation we'll be talking about in terms of payback period. Now payback period can be looked into a different methods of calculation, as an internal rate of return, IRR, or present value concept. What are the present value of the futures earning, as the case might be, the payback period. Other financial profitability calculation determine all affected cost factors, as the case might be. Now, implementation of environmental projects is solution oriented, quick implementation, well known cause of the problem. Possibilities of improvement is known. It's a quick implementation that we come across with it. How do we look into it? Problem oriented, complex environmental problems or approaches, causes and measures are not clear. A better analysis is necessary. It is necessary to set goals, solve the problem at its root, as the case might be. Remember, we are looking into the environmental project in two prism and two glasses. One is solution based and the other one will be problem based. So we have already clarified, as in the solution based, what is the objective, and in the problem based prism we are not clear about the object, but want to get rid of the problems altogether. So that is what we are looking out here. In solution based orientation, it will be a quick implementation, whereas problem based, it might take a little longer to implement it, because you have a lot of steps to, as to find the causes, as to probably measure it up and come up with a better understanding. So it requires different goals altogether. So solution orientation is a quick implementation, whereas problem orientation, it would be complex, complex in nature at all. So let us understand how to solve their problem. There are three stages. One, first is to understand what you want to measure out. Yes, this is what we need to go around it. What is the measurement criteria that needs to be taken into consideration? Stage number two is how does it environmental effects? Is it going to affect the air, the water, or the soil pollution? And probably will come to the third step of implementing it. Here is it what you are looking for in implementation. Remember, we are talking of problems, we are talking of idea generation, and we are talking about products which is going to be productive, which is going to be cost not so cost intensive. At the same time, it should elevate the standard of living of for the general customers, by the way. So determining the various stages, the one, two, three, as the stage considers about it. The necessary measures will be talking about the environmental protections, defining the profile of the environmental identification, the starting point, and this is what the problem is all about it. So you know what is the problem? Probably it is a lot of air pollution has been done, a lot of sulfur dioxide has been, or sulfur monoxide has been released onto the environment. So this is the environmental problem, right? So decisions, now what are the acceptable level for sulfur monoxide or dioxide, as the case might be? Define the problems, and then there is what you start with, the issues at the starting point. What are you looking into it? In stage two, it's the other way around. Is the environmental problem and the description is what we have already decided upon, right? Now you will need to tell me why this sulfur dioxide or sulfur monoxide has been released. What is the alternative methods to go around it, to avoid that kind of release into the air? And that is where establishment of goal is all about it. This defines the stage two. Before we come to the stage three, the final stage is wherein we go test the alternative usage of materials, product, And in cases if it is still being released, can we use a filter? Can we remove the concentrated sulfur monoxide or dioxide, and then probably monitor the success as for the quality of air is concerned? And you will see, surprisingly, you have reached a new wonderful result, which is not only acceptable and profitable on the long run, because it addresses the environmental concerns of the end public. With this, I come to an end of this presentation. Thank you for watching this video.